Hello everyone, welcome back to NPTEL online certification course on research methodology for planning and architectural studies. In our last lecture, towards the end, I told you that now we are coming towards end of this particular course on research methodology, and in entire course we have discussed about various aspects. We started with certain concept type of research, then we discussed about the methodology, literature review. We have also shown you different stages of sampling, sample size, data collection procedure, how to analyze it, and also we have discussed with certain case studies. And with that, we actually try to understand the overall approach. I'm sure that all these lectures help you to understand, helped you to clear some of the doubts that you had before joining this course. Today we'll be discussing lecture number 60, and which is our last lecture for this course. And here I title this particular lecture as Emerging Research Potential in Planning and Architecture. So let us start today's lecture on this. If I say about the content of this presentation, we'll have very quick recap of the entire course, what we have learned, and then we'll discuss about emerging research potential in various fields of architecture and planning, where you can nurture more, and you can find out your area of interest. Maybe some of you who are already doing certain research can get those kind of match with those areas, but those who are planning to start the research, maybe some student who are just in masters, or maybe just joined the PhD program and still looking at the topic and all, so this can help. But again, this is something where based on my understanding, based on the current trend, and based on the current literature, I have made that list. But any topic beyond the list is also possible. So I'm not saying these are the only emerging field where you should focus on. I will not make you bias about that. You can explore more as well. Okay, so quick recap. So I just insert this particular course structure in the first slide. So in week 1, what we have discussed is basically what is research methodology, type of research, like where it can be divided like a fundamental research, descriptive research, empirical research. Then also it can be action research, it can be policy research, it can be applied, it can be longitudinal, cross sectional, various type of research that often we heard about, we just read about, but we had certain sort of probably some sort of doubt that how they are different. So in this particular lecture we have discussed. So in this whole module, each week we had 5 lectures, and I tried to cluster all this lecture in a way so that sequentially you can understand the whole process very easily. So there also we have discussed about the research method versus methodology. Often we just make certain mistakes there, where method is something which will solve a particular problem, or you analyze the collected data with that method, but where the methodology is that how you are conducting the whole research. So method is maybe one part of the methodology, but methodology is the entire flow, how, like starting from identifying the problem, identifying the research gap, objectives, then study area, or whatever it may be, an experimental setup. So like that, then the sampling, sample size, data collection, analysis, interpretation, then taking it forward from one objective to another objective. The output of first objective may be the input of second objective depending on the research. So this entire process is actually the methodology. So there we had certain sort of doubt and questions. Even I thank to all the learners who have also written those kind of doubts in the forum, and I have answered them to clear those. Then again, in that particular case, we started with certain kind of issues and challenges in planning and architectural research, deal with the data. uh, Sometimes we don't get the data, sometimes even you get some information but they are not relevant, that we have discussed. Week 2 we focused on research process and research writing, and in the process, like from first step like identifying the research gap, then forming the objective hypothesis to final recommendation and conclusion. That's the whole process that we have discussed. But again, along with that, we discuss the importance of research writing. Maybe many a times we do very excellent research, we actually performed good analysis, and finally, like maybe we are not able to write it in a proper manner, not in a very technical language that the journals they are looking for, and as a result maybe we are getting rejection in the journals, or maybe we don't feel like, and we don't have much confidence that should I put it for a good journal or not. So those kind of things definitely are very common, especially when you are writing your paper for the first time and all. So there I mentioned about that, how to write a good technical paper, and then it is again practice, practice and practice. So more you practice, more you be focused on what you are writing, whether it is meaningful or not, you read it again and again, then over time you will definitely develop a good writing skill, especially the technical writing part. Week 3 was very important for all of us. There we have discussed about the literature review, because that is the backbone to identify the research gap, to develop the hypothesis. And now to identifying the research gap we need literature review. To identify the possible methods to solve this you need literature. So literature review can be done for many purposes, and here we have discussed in detail various types of literature review. Week 4 we discussed about various type of data in research, measurement and scaling technique, where whether you go for some sort of Likert scale, whether you go for a semantic differential scale, Staple scale, or it is some sort of different scale, and then different type of surveys that we also discussed in this week 4. Week 5 we discussed about sample size calculation, and where we had certain sort of discussion on minimum sample size, then the sampling techniques, whether like you go for probabilistic sampling like simple random sampling, stratified random sampling, or you go for non-probabilistic sampling like judgment sampling, or maybe some purposive sampling. So depending on the need you have to select. So there is nothing less or more when you go for probabilistic sampling or non-probabilistic sampling, but different sources of information data we have discussed. And then preparation of survey questionnaire, close ended, open ended, semi close ended. So those kind of questionnaire that also we have mentioned. In week 6 we have discussed about data collection, whether through observation, whether through participation, whether through expert opinion. Then also we discuss something very important about the data ethics, because whenever you collect opinion, especially which is very much personal, sensitive, so some sort of ethical approval that we require. We have discussed different type of ethical approvals required for such research. Then we discussed another important aspect and very serious concern for all the researcher about the similarity and plagiarism. So what are the different reasons to have high level of plagiarisms in technical writing, and how to avoid it, that we have discussed. Week 7 we have discussed about processing of data and database, that final database which will be used for analysis, interpreting data through descriptive statistics, through just different sort of uh, preliminary analysis, through visual interpretation and all. We also discuss the representation of data and inferences through tables, through figure, through maps, etc. In week 8 we have discussed about hypothesis testing, parametric test, non-parametric test. Then week 9 we started with the quantitative research approach, and also I have given 5 case studies on quantitative research. Then it is followed by qualitative research approach and the case studies for the same. Again we have discussed 5 case studies, both from planning and architectural discipline, to make you understand the application. Week 11 was something like where we have discussed about advantages of mixed method research, where we can use both qualitative and quantitative in different combination, like it can be parallel, it can be sequential, it can be integrated. And then we discuss the case study. Then we also discuss the case study along with the approach of special methods, and also discussed about the behavioral research method, so which is nowadays very important, the user behavior and the built environment that we discussed in detail. Week 12, which is the current week, where we have discussed about some advantages of simulation and its use in research. Then we discussed about big data research, then role of artificial intelligence and machine learning in architecture and planning research. And also in last lecture we have discussed about the programming language and software. I tried to make this course useful for all of you who joined for this course, and we discussed in a sequential manner, gradually with the basic fundamentals and then its application, and towards end it is much more of the emerging tools and techniques. So hope this particular content help you a lot, but in the whole process I have mentioned about different statistical methods, okay, in very brief manner. Also given you those kind of references by which you can go further and read that to understand the method. That's because the focus was not on handling with the statistical softwares or maybe statistical methods. It's all about the methodology. So there I have not extended the discussion in some of the case studies, but I have given you the clue for how to use that and basic fundamentals of those methods. And if you are interested, you can go through those papers, you can just search in literature to know more about that, so that you can apply it in a appropriate manner. Now coming to this, as already I have mentioned, this title of this lecture is on understanding the emerging research potential in planning and architecture. So here is the broad list that I could able to identify, but again this list is not exhaustive enough, or I cannot say this is the only area where research is required. It can be beyond that list as well, but these are very common based on current literature, and if you see that last 5 years this is the trend. So sustainable design practices, urban regeneration and revitalization, smart cities and IoT, Internet of Things integration, inclusive design and accessibility, digital twins and virtual reality in design, climate change and resilient design, housing affordability and accessibility, transportation and infrastructure, cultural heritage preservation. Then it is all on urbanization and population growth dynamics. Now we will take up one by one each of them. The research potential in sustainable design practices. In that case, what are the possible area that one can look at? The innovation in green building materials, like whenever you say the sustainable design, so basic idea is to lower the carbon footprint, lower the energy of the built environment, and for that along with other aspect, other design orientation and all, material plays a crucial role. So research is required on green building materials, how we can make those materials sustainable, so that whether we can use some sort of waste material and we can reuse it in a better manner, so that we can do the experiment on that. Passive design strategies, like all this kind of maximizing daylight and other thing. So there you can do research on that. Net zero energy buildings is now most commonly discussed topic in the field of architecture, where the idea is to go for carbon neutrality, where the building itself during the construction, whatever it actually produce or consume, so that can generate at its own. So how you can make it effectively, so that energy requirement for the building can be produced by the building itself. Then we talk about the life cycle assessment and environmental impact. So the entire lifespan of a building, whatever like the embodied energy that it has, operational energy, the overall lifespan, how this is performing, and there the research is required that how we can make that much more effective. Coming to another interesting topic in that field is the biomimicry in architecture, where you take the inferences from the nature and you design the element to make it more sustainable. Coming to the research potential in urban regeneration and revitalization. So in this case, if you see many of our cities which are now old, there are many old structures which are no longer be used for that intended purpose, but also it has certain significance. So for those kind of cases, we can go for adaptive reuse of structures, where we change some of the purpose of that building, so that the building will remain, the maintenance will be happening over there. Brownfield redevelopment, as because now there are two type of development. One is greenfield development, where you plan everything is new, and brownfield where already there is some settlement and you want to just retrofit some of the things. So we require that kind of research in the brownfield development, how we can improve it, okay, overall livability in the brownfield development. Then community engagement and participation, how that can help to come up with a sustainable design and planning that we can do research on. Economic impact assessment. So as a planner or a researcher, we also need to understand that whatever changes that we are proposing, how it is going to change the economy, what will be the impact on that particular economy of, it can be a microeconomical level analysis or it can be a macroeconomy of a larger scale. So this sort of research is also required to anticipate the changes and the impact on the economy. Case studies of successful revitalization projects where things are really happening, we can take up those kind of good case studies across the globe and understand through case study that what are the different strategies by which we can make things happen in a positive direction. Coming to the research potential in smart cities and IoT integration part. So Internet of Things, those are recent advancement in the IT sector which we can use to make our urban planning and urban design much more effective and smart. Data driven decision making. Now this we have discussed about the real time big data and application of AI, where we can solve some sort of urban issues, whether it is related to the traffic jam, whether it is related to certain sort of incident management for certain accidents or maybe certain activities somewhere in the city, or even to develop certain sort of decision support system in case of handling the flood situation. So data driven decision making, the area how effectively you can develop those kind of models and how to deal with that, you can do research in this area as well. Smart infrastructure management, because many a times we just keep on adding the infrastructure, but proper asset management, infrastructure as asset management and inventory management is crucial. There also you can look into. Citizen engagement platforms, where definitely how we can integrate the suggestions of citizen to improve the plan. So now it is in some sort of purview, people are, planners are engaging people into those, but how we can integrate in a better way. Then at the same time, whenever you have those much of information, city level information, how you can develop the platform for making the privacy and security concern in handling data. Coming to the inclusive design and accessibility, which is again some topic of interest, where you talk about the universal design principles, how we can make all the facilities, all the design and activities which can be accessed by all irrespective of its ability, because we know that there are a huge number of people who are differently abled. Maybe they are having some sort of visual impairment, or maybe it is something related to the mental impairment, or it may be something, some mobility impairment. So in all such cases, how to integrate them, how to include them, that is required. Even that is something where we talk about those kind of impairment, there is a concept called universality of disability. So where it says that any point of time of each of us, we are some way or other disabled. Say for example, when we were kids, okay, early days, like, then obviously we are not able to work, right? Even that time we always used to get the support of our parents or our seniors to they just took us around in the park and all with the perambulator and all. Slowly whenever like coming towards like old age, there also there will be difficulty, we need certain sort of assistance. So that's why somewhere we are also like disabled in some part. So assistive technology is something where you can help, because the concept of this barrier free design or universal design is not to help people, rather you create the design and build environment so that they feel comfortable and they can able to perform the activities like others. So for that, assistive technology can help. There we can do research to come up with new technology and all. Sensory design and neurodiversity, so you can develop those kind of design. Age friendly cities, so many of our cities across the globe is now coming to us aging. So huge percentage of people are senior citizens. So for them, how you can make overall built environment, what would be the strategy, what kind of facility that they require, is another interesting area of research. Accessible transportation system, as because to move from one place to another, this is another one like important topic of mobility for all that you can take. Coming to the research potential in digital twins and virtual reality, so definitely we have enough scope to make this research on building information modeling in BIM. Virtual reality for design visualization, where you create the metaverse and then you can do the problem solving exercise. Augmented reality is another one where we discussed in detail that for construction monitoring, or maybe in the architectural preservation or some conservation, we can do that. Simulation and predictive modeling, by which we can actually see the consequences of such infrastructure or certain design implementation, and accordingly we can make the changes wherever we see in simulation that these are the conflict points or these are the negative consequences, we can alter the design to overcome it, and then we implement the actual. Then collaborative design platform is possible through digital media. So there we can also do some sort of research. Research potential in climate change and resilience. So this is something very important, that climate change and resilient design. Climate responsive architecture, not only the building, even the other infrastructure that we build, there we can do. Resilient infrastructure planning, how we make that is your flood resilient or seismic resilient. So it's all about understanding the scenario, understanding the anticipated impact, and how we can solve through the engineering process, through the managerial process, so that there will be high preparedness during all such kind of calamities, natural calamities like flood, or maybe heavy rain, or maybe there is some landslide or seismic activity. So how we can rebuild faster. So those kind of innovative planning and implementable solutions are required, so one can research on that. Flood management, water sensitive urban design, so these are already I have mentioned. Disaster preparedness and recovery, there also you can do research. Integration of nature based solutions, so many a times, now this is something that application of NBS through blue green infrastructure integration, so those kind of areas where we can actually help our future cities in a better way, where we can use some sort of urban forest concept or other nature based, which is normally is natural healing process, or whichever is available in nature, water bodies, then green covers. So how we can integrate this in our current day urban planning, so that at least the pollution level of these areas will be manageable, and also there will be nice environment to breathe, and that will improve the overall livability in that city. Coming to the research potential in housing affordability and accessibility, there also we can think of different housing design and different strategy. Then we talk about the housing satisfaction, uh, which can actually help in sustaining that particular settlement. Otherwise, there are certain consequences of gentrification, people are moving away from that location, etc. Co-housing and co-living models, modular and prefabricated construction to make the buildings much more efficient, and also like you can say that low cost, low maintenance housing. Then policy intervention in affordable housing, not only always you need to do research on something implementable, or maybe you can say that some material specific thing. Sometimes you also can look at different sort of strategies, different sort of policies, so you can do certain study on that as well. Now coming to the research potential in transportation and infrastructure, because this is also a backbone, and most of the physical infrastructure that we talk about is related to the transportation and infrastructure. So when we talk about the transit oriented development, okay, their research is required. What kind of combination, what kind of design is required, especially in the context, because we cannot simply adopt the same strategy which is being adopted in some other part of the world, because if we try to contextualize these things in case of our cities and country, probably there will be certain changes. So research is required there as well, and not only for the urban, now also the focus is given on the regional connectivity and then the impacts on the development. Multimodal transportation, that already have mentioned that it's the seamless journey experience from one mode to another, especially this kind of integration is required to boost the public transportation and make use of it, so the research is required there as well. Sustainable mobility solutions, what are the options, where we are talking about now only with the e-vehicles adoption and other alternatives, but definitely many other things can be included here. Infrastructure financing models, so there also we need to look at it, how different kind of financing, different kind of mechanism, institutional integration can make things happen. Future of autonomous vehicle is another futuristic approach, where definitely few of the cities across the globe, they have already tested some of the thing, and still it is some sort of emerging research. If someone is interested, can do that. Coming to the research potential in cultural heritage and preservation, this is another domain of architecture, where conservation and adaptive reuse of the structures, you can do research. You can go for digital documentation technique, where you use different sort of 3D scanner, radar and all, so by which you can recreate those kind of remains of architectural excellence, and then you can recreate some of the visuals and documentary. Now coming to the planning aspect, so heritage tourism and economic development is another area of research that you can look into. Indigenous design and cultural identity, that again another topic. heritage impact assessment, because some of the cities where new development demands certain sort of heavy growth, where you have certain area already preserved at historic core. So how that can be integrated, so that can be taken up. Now coming to the urbanization and population growth, definitely in this case we have to deal with the research where informal settlement upgrading is required to overall improve the livability, compact city planning with much more lesser travel distance and much more sustainable options that you have. Slum rehabilitation programs and also different policy research can be done here. Urban agriculture and food security, where you can look into all these options for urban area. Equity in urban development policies, because many a times whenever we see the growth pattern and all, so we see the specialities having so much of inequality and polarization. So how to balance it out, or to investigate whether there is some sort of such kind of inequality, or there is some sort of issues with the equity. So there is another area that we can work on. So all those are different discipline, and I already have given a disclaimer that these are something which are trending, okay, based on the literature and all what we found. But ultimately, everything that we are talking about towards sustainability and then sustainable development goals, the United Nations. So many of us, we know about it. United Nations, which set the 17 goals till 2030 to have, say, goal like no poverty, zero hunger, good health, quality of education, gender equality, clean water, affordable and clean energy. Okay, goal number 8, decent work and economic growth, like that. And we discussed many times about the sustainable development goals, which deals with the sustainable cities and communities. We discussed about goal number 6, about clean water and access to water, through some of the case studies. But actually, they are all interlinked. If you improve certain aspect, other will get impacted definitely. So this is something where now there is a trend. Even the journal papers, they are also trying to link your research findings with certain sort of SDG. So as a researcher, this is my advice to all of you. You just identify your area, and then you just find out which SDG is suitable, so that you can link it with. It is always good that you just tag your research with certain SDG if applicable. So with that, we come to the summary of this particular lecture as well as this course altogether. So in this case, quick recap what we have studied so far, whatever we have discussed. So I hope that you understood all these concepts very clearly, and that help you to answer those questions in assignment. And definitely before and after joining this course, you can identify some of the aspect, you get certain answers to your question that you had before joining the course. And I am hopeful that this entire course is going to help you in your research. In this particular lecture, we have discussed about few emerging areas, the research potential in planning and architectural domain, starting with the a smart city, or it may be something related to the conservation, heritage preservation, it related to the urbanization, related to the climate change, housing, building performance, sustainable design, and there are so many, right? So that we have discussed. So with that, I conclude here the reading materials, and also in all the lectures I have also given the URL for such content that I have used, or wherever like I have discussed about the case study, I have also given the full description of the paper and the QR code to help you out, that if you are interested in that particular topic, you can go through it, and whenever you have questions, you write into the forum. So the entire experience of this particular course will be really helpful content which actually can help you to think in a positive direction, in a right direction of what kind of research method that you are going to adopt, what kind of methodology you should look for your research. As because one size doesn't fit all, so definitely depending on your research objectives and whatever you want to achieve, your methodology will change. It is not a simple prototype, but yes, the approach is similar, that you have to sequentially develop all these stages and the writing part of it. So I wish you success in your research wherever you are right now, and definitely this is a nice experience for me as well to get all these questions in forum, to interact, and it actually helped me to also understand different typical topic that you are interested in. So with that, I conclude here, and thank you so much for joining the course. And maybe in future we'll be coming up with some new codes alike to this particular area, which again will help you to conduct your research effectively. Thank you. Bye bye.